What's up, guys? Welcome back. We got UFC 317 today, this week, and we're going to go over every fight on the card, and I'm going to give my predictions for every fight on the card and give you a breakdown for each fight as well on the card. So let's get straight into it. All right, so first fight on the card, we have Jacobe Smith versus Niko Price. So when I first saw this fight, I instantly thought we're about to witness the biggest mauling in UFC history. If there's a fighter on this card who has zero chance of winning, it's this one right here because it's Niko Price. And yeah, he pretty much has absolutely zero chance of winning this fight. He's just washed at this point in his career. He's worn out, and I'm not sure why he hasn't retired. And this fight just seems like a complete mismatch. He's coming up against one of the most scariest, most dominant prospects in the UFC, and I've been high on Jacobe Smith ever since I've seen him fight on the Contender Series. I knew he was going to be a problem in this division, and based off his based off of his last fight, you can tell that he's going to be a future champion, and he just seems dominant in every fight that he's been in so far. We saw his wrestling skills throughout his early career, but to see his last fight and to know that he has that insane knockout ability as well, this dude's gonna be a problem for the rest of the division, and he's one of the most exciting fighters to watch right now. So you should definitely keep an eye on him. And not also a lot of fighters from the gym he trains in. I'm not sure if he's still training at American Top Team, but a lot of guys from there, from American Top Team, have praised this guy and said that his wrestling is nothing like they've ever seen before, and he has like really good, insane cardio. And yeah, guys like Daniel Cormier just praising him and saying he's going to like be the next future champion. And I don't know, in this fight, knowing the momentum that he's on right now versus where Niko Price is at in his career, this probably is going to take 30 seconds or something for Jacobe Smith to handle him. He has insane knockout power, dominant wrestling, very good cardio, and he just has future champion written all over him. And someone like Niko Price, he has 3 wins in his last 10 fights, and they're to a very low level competition, like Alex Morono, Alex Oliveira, and James Vick, which is probably like the three worst fighters ever in the UFC. So yeah, those wins aren't impressive, and that's just 3 out of his last 10. All the rest he was either a no contest or he lost them. So yeah, pretty easy pick there. I'm going to go with Jacobe Smith, just a future star, insane knockout power, and elite wrestling, has cardio for days versus 3 for 10 Niko Price, just washed, slow, and just he should just retire after this one for sure. It's probably the biggest mismatch on the card, and I'm sure the odds are gonna indicate that. So pick is Jacobe Smith. Next fight on the card, we have Jonathan Diniz versus Alvin Hines. I assume that's how you pronounce his last name. Um, who's making his UFC debut? I'm gonna go with Alvin Hines for this fight. Jonathan, he's pretty quick. He has good striking. He has nice power as well. But if you take him down, there's not really much he can do. He doesn't really get back up. He can't really scramble to find another position. He can't reverse position. The round is pretty much over if you get him down because he's not gonna get back up. But when I watch Alvin and you just like get to know him through like his fights or whatever, like I kind of like the vibe that I get from him. He's really confident and he has this aura about him. I don't know. He just has like some swag to him. He just really like feels himself when he's in there. And when he strikes, he has good striking as well. He has He's feinting as well in his striking. He has good distance management. He's not just some guy being brought in for no reason. You know, he's actually a good striker. He throws kicks, and he's not strictly a boxer, which is something I like. You know, in his last fight, he's coming off of a head kick knockout where he kicked the guy's head and knocked him out. So in the third round as well. So he's patient. He likes to break down his opponents. He doesn't rush anything. Doesn't only headhunt. Works the body, works the leg kicks, and yeah, I like his striking. He feints as well, like I said. Like he feints with his kicks, he feints with his punches. And the thing that really made me choose him to win this fight is because he's the type of fighter when it gets like into a heated exchange on in the striking, he'll duck under and go for a takedown. So he's pretty much well rounded as a fighter, right? So that's really what it comes down to. I believe that like Alvin, he'll be more well rounded in there pretty much, and he'll take the fight to the ground if he needs to, and he'll just outwork him there. I know I just said I like this guy's Alvin, what's his name? Like Alvin Hines striking, but Jonathan has like even better striking. I would say like in his movement, I feel Jonathan is more fluid in there, and with his movement, I think he'll be more loose in there and not as rigid or stiff as Alvin. But I just think Alvin will outwork him and he'll put up more volume and he'll take the fight to the ground if he needs to. And I feel like Alvin might be able to go deeper into the waters than Jonathan Diaz or Diniz. So I'm gonna go with Alvin Hins, you know. But don't get me wrong, Jonathan Diniz, he has good striking, you know. He has decent power as well, but the thing is, like, once you get him down, he just really can't get back up. And Alvin's like making his UFC debut. He's confident in there. He's gonna be technical, mixing strikes with takedowns. So I'm going Alvin, just more volume, more well-rounded, and he should be able to break him down, I would say. So next fight on the card, we have this is a banger matchup: Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. This was kind of tough to pick, but I'm going to go with Felipe Lima to win this fight. You know, Payton obviously he just got exposed with his takedown defense in his last fight. Like it was really bad. His takedown defense. He showed good submission skills or good submission defensive skills as well though. And so before that fight, he was seen as some elite wrestler or elite striker, which he is. Like his striking is really really good when you strike with him. He has solid combinations, really solid power, and he's like a dog. He just loves to fight, right? But if he gets taken down by a good wrestler, it's pretty much over for him too. Kind of just like the last fight. But this fight, it will kind of test Peyton Talbot and see like how much of a dog he really is, you know. And I still think he really is that dog that we saw in his whole career right before that last fight, you know. When you strike with him, he goes into this flow state, and it's like he's hitting you with shots over and over. It's like someone's using him as a fighter in a video game, and he's not even like controlling himself. It's like someone's controlling his every move. It's not even like he's in control anymore. He just goes into this like flow state where he just knows what's the next move he's gonna do. That's when you're striking with him. But now he's fighting Felipe Lima, and I feel like the UFC is kind of done with what's it called with Peyton Talbot. They've been giving him kind of favorable matchups because they were trying to build him up, and they're like, bro, we gave you a 40-year-old man and you let everyone down. So here's Felipe Lima, who's on a 14 fight win streak. You know, if you want to be that guy again, you gotta like get through him. You know, so Felipe Lima on a 14 fight win streak, he has two fights already in the UFC, and he's undefeated in the UFC. And his debut, I think it was, yeah, in his debut, he submitted Muhammadjan Naimov, which is a pretty good win to have, especially in your UFC debut. I'm pretty sure he was an underdog in that fight. He comes in, he submits him in the third round. and then he beats Miles Johns. So now he's on a 14 fight win streak overall. He has good volume. He has nice, unpredictable striking, which can be tricky for a lot of fighters to deal with. He has really solid grappling as well. And he does well with mixing up his strikes with his takedowns. You know, he's not just focused on one aspect of MMA. You know, and in his fight with Miles Johns, he was able to take him down 2 times, which is pretty impressive. And when you're just that well rounded coming up against strictly a striker, I feel like Payton's going to have some problems, like not being able to focus on just striking. It might look similar to his last fight, but I feel Felipe Lima can do that if he wants to, but he also has really nice striking as well. This dude Felipe, he's game. Like he comes to fight. He's very active with his kicks. He has solid power when he throws as well. So I think when it comes to strength, Payton will be the more physically stronger individual out of the two. He'll have like a physicality advantage here. And I just think he'll be more thicker and more compact. And he'll definitely have more power in his shots. And he'll have more thud in his shots as well. So I think Payton, he'll be able to take Felipe's best shots. He'll be durable enough to take them. But when Payton lands, it'll have way more effect on Felipe than when Felipe is landing on you. Because I feel Payton has that durability to take the shots and then come back even stronger. And not only that, Payton, when he lands, he's pretty accurate. So he's landing with power and accuracy in every shot. But I feel like Felipe can just mix it up so well. You know, even with his strikes and then change levels if he has to. I think that's what's going to be the difference maker here. But if Felipe decides to strictly stand with him, I can see Payton just bullying him in there. It'll look like the Cameron Simon fight where Payton just basically walked him down and just destroyed him. You know, because Cameron pretty much decided to strike with him, and even when he did decide to go for a takedown, he ate that knee coming up the middle. So it was kind of like a predictable takedown. But I just feel Felipe can strike with him if he wants to, and then when it kind of gets a little too easy for Payton, Felipe will have some tricks up his sleeve to change levels, throw a head kick. You know, he's kind of versatile in there. He has a lot of options, I feel. But yeah, if it's strictly striking, Payton will probably win as the fight goes on. But I see Felipe just being smarter in there. I think he's smart enough to mix in the takedowns and get him in the clinch, be very fast in his strikes, and he'll pretty much just out volume him. So I just like his activity when Felipe is in there. He's very active. It's a tough pick though. It's gonna be a close fight because we don't know how much work Payton has done on his takedown defense or if he's worked in his wrestling at all. But I still feel it'll be more fluid for Felipe to mix in those takedowns because it's just who he is as a fighter, whereas who Payton is as a fighter, he's strictly a striker. So like when things get tough in the fight, he pretty much reverts back to what he knows best. And I feel Felipe has been always more well-rounded, and even if you look at Payne Talbott's earlier fights in his career, he always there's fights where he pretty much gets taken down, has to work to get back up before he pulls off the win, you know? But if you come up against a really solid grappler, like we saw in his last fight, it's going to be a lot harder for him to get back up the more he starts moving up in competition. And Felipe, he's not a scrub, you know? He has real potential to climb up the division. So I just think Felipe has a lot of tools to win this fight. When Payton, he's just gonna be a more powerful striker, not the best takedown defense, but when he's in the pocket, he's gonna be a total dog. You know, he's gonna win those exchanges in the pocket for sure. But Felipe Lima, 2 fights in the UFC, undefeated, strong grappling, high pace, mixes it up well. So the pick is gonna be Felipe Lima for me. He has more tools. He has good fight IQ. A fight IQ probably better than Payton Talbott. I think he'll just edge this one out. I can see him winning a decision because I think Payton is durable enough to take all the volume that is going to be thrown at him, and he might get taken down a few times. So pick is going to be Felipe Lima. Next fight on the card, we have Terrance McKinney versus Viacheslav Borshchev. I'm gonna go with Viacheslav Borshchev to win this fight. It just gut feeling. I think Viacheslav Borshchev is gonna win this fight. You know, in so Terrance McKinney, he has 7 losses on his record, right? 5 of those losses are from him being knocked out, right? So that's 71% of his losses coming from being knocked out. I'm not saying he's gonna get knocked out here because Terrance is pretty talented. He's a pretty talented striker. He has all the talent in the world in the first round, pretty much. But after that, he has been shown to gas in his fights after the first round. So if you have someone with power and accuracy, you can get him out of there in the first round, right? Because he's not that durable. And if you have someone with just solid cardio, you can outwork him throughout the fight. And because they can just survive the first round and then outwork him, outpace him throughout the rest of the fight. That's pretty much how you can win. But if you have someone who can outstrike him and has power and cardio, then it's pretty much over for Terrance McKinney, right? Because he's pretty much a first round fighter at his best. You'll see him do his best work in the first round. So when it comes to Vyacheslav Borshchev, 6 out of his 8 wins have come from knockout. He has 8 wins on his record, and 6 of them are from him knocking out his opponents, right? So, but I don't think that will matter here. He's a really good striker, but in his most recent fights, that power hasn't really been there. It's kind of diminished as he has fought more recently. It hasn't been the same power that he once had. But I still feel the skills are still there to beat Terrance McKinney. And so, yeah, that power he once had, it's not there. It's pretty much kind of diminished. But he still has the skill. And he's a former kickboxer as well. So his striking is really, really good, you know. He has, I would say his striking is better than Terrance McKinney's striking. And he's durable too. So he can get hit and he'll be okay. I feel he'll be okay against Terrance McKinney. You know, he's never been knocked out in his MMA career. I'm not sure if he's been knocked out in his kickboxing career, but in his MMA career, he's never been knocked out. So I think he'll be able to outwork Terrance McKinney throughout the fight. He's pretty fast. He's pretty strong. He has a lot of skills when it comes to striking. He likes to work the body. So I think Vyacheslav, he'll be able to weather the storm in the first round and then just start to pick up the pace. And as the fight goes on, he'll land more strikes on Terrance. And I just think he's the better overall striker in this matchup. So that's why I'm going with Vyacheslav Borsov. But Terrance McKinney, he can have that first round power. You know what I mean? Like he's super dangerous early, but he fades pretty fast, and I feel Viacheslav will be able to stay in there. And yeah, Terrance, he's just not durable. I feel like the shots he takes like have a really big effect on him. So that's why I'm going Borshchev. He's durable. He's a clean striker, ex kickboxer, and he's never been finished. So the pick is Vyacheslav Borshchev for me. I think he survives the early storm and he'll take over late as the fight goes on. So pick is Vyacheslav Borshchev. Next fight on the card, we have Viviane Araujo versus Tracy Cortez. I'm gonna go Tracy Cortez to win this fight. I'm gonna go Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez actually has a win over Jazz Divisius, which is aging really nicely. And in that fight, she was able to stuff most of her takedowns, and she pretty much outstruck her on the feet, which was really impressive to see. Now that you see Jasmine is kind of dominating the rest of her opponents, right? And the only loss that Tracy Cortez has in the UFC is to Rose Namajunas, which is not a bad loss at all. That's a former champion. And in that fight, it was 5 rounds. I feel that really heavily favored Rose to win because she's a former champion and she has that experience. So that means Tracy Cortez is pretty much undefeated in 3 round fights in the UFC. And in this matchup, she'll be 31 years old fighting a 38-year-old Viviane Araujo, who did look pretty good in her last fight. She looked pretty good, but I think Tracy Cortez, she's just a better, all well-rounded fighter. She's very talented with her strikes. She's accurate and she puts up some good volume. And she's active. She mixes in takedowns as well, and she's primarily a striker. And she's primarily a wrestler, and her striking has come a long way as well. So she's really becoming that contender that you want to see in the division when she's moving up in her fights. So when it comes to Vivian, she's also a grappler, and she has decent striking as well. She's very powerful. She has a sick knockout in her career. She has a sick. I forgot to who it was. It was a highlight knockout to someone she fought in the UFC. But she can get hit as well, though. She's fast. She's athletic, especially for her age. And the thing about her is that she's definitely susceptible to slowing down in her fights. When it comes to those later rounds, if her opponent isn't slowing down, she'll probably slow down. And that's something that can get her in trouble in this matchup versus Tracy. Because it's only a 3 round fight, and I think that favors Tracy. She's gonna be younger, she's gonna be motivated to win. Hasn't lost a 3 round fight in the UFC, right? Yeah. So and Vivian's last fight, she's coming off of a close fight to Karine Silva, who was a prospect coming up as well, kind of like Tracy Cortez. But Karine Silva slowed down in that last fight. In that third round, she had bad body language. Karine Silva did, and she was laying on her back. And Viviane Araujo, she was able to get the nod from the judges based off of how Karine Silva kind of slowed down in that fight. And I just don't see Viviane Araujo beating two prospects in a row. Not someone like Tracy Cortez, who lost only to a championship fighter. And I just think Tracy, she has a lot of potential to be a solid contender. And I think she passes the Viviane Araujo test, right? So I think Tracy shows so urgency to win. She'll do more than what Karine Silva did. And she'll be looking good in front of the judges. Like she'll be holding positions, that are just dominant. Like on when she gets on top, she's gonna hold that position and just look good instead of going for a submission and then losing it. And in the striking, she's gonna be constantly moving forward. I just think Tracy can pretty much outdog her in this fight, and she'll be more technical, especially in the 3 round fight. Because even in the fifth round for Tracy Cortez, in her fight versus Rose, Tracy showed a ton of heart, and she outlanded Rose, I believe, in the fifth round, and she kept coming forward, and she's not just going to lay on her back and kind of like how Karine Silva did in the third round of her fight with Araujo. So, and I'm pretty sure uh, Tracy Cortez didn't even train for 5 rounds in that fight. She was set to take on Miranda Maverick that week, but then accepted a fight with Rose on short notice. I believe that's what happened. And even with that information, she still kept coming forward in the fifth round. Like she accepted the fight on short notice, 5 rounds with versus Rose, and she outlanded Rose in the fifth round. Like I don't see her slowing down or kind of giving up like Karine Silva did in the third round. So I feel pretty good about Tracy Cortez here. She has a ton of potential. She'll outwork her. She won't slow down, and she'll get more dominant positions. And the chances of a 38-year-old veteran taking out two prospects in a row in a women's division, it's just very slim. I just don't see that happening. Cortez, she has great wrestling, she has clean boxing, and she's a rising prospect. Araujo, she's strong, but she can slow down, and she still has that solid grappling. But I'm going Tracy Cortez. She's younger, she's more consistent, and she should be able to control 3 rounds of this fight. So I'm going Tracy Cortez. Next fight on the card, we do have Hyder Amil versus Jose Delgado. I'm gonna pick Jose Delgado to win this fight. Hyder Amil, I like this guy. He's a dog, and he just keeps coming forward. Even in the last round of his last fight, he kept coming forward when it was a really close fight, and I feel that is the reason why he was able to win that fight and remain undefeated versus William Gomez. It was a close fight, and he ended up winning a split decision by just doing more in that last round. Kept coming forward, and he pretty much would just keep fighting to remain undefeated. But I just don't see him remaining undefeated after facing Jose Delgado. You know, Hyder, he, like I said, keeps coming forward. He has a solid cardio. He puts up a great pace with good power as well. He's durable. He has a solid chin, and he'll stand in the pocket and throw heavy shots. So not only that, he isn't just a striker. He mixes in some takedowns as well. So, he really leaves it all in there when he's fighting. He gives it his all when he's in there. But this is a fun fight because, on the other hand, you have Jose Delgado, who's on a 6-fight finishing streak. The last 6 opponents, he's finished them all. And this is going to be his second fight in the UFC. He got a win in the Contender Series, then knocked out Connor Matthews, I believe in the first or second round. And now he's fighting pretty decent prospect in Hyder Amil. But I would say Jose, he's just he's the better fighter, I think. He's more technical. He'll hit you from range. He uses kicks and stays on the outside, but he has a good balance of that and also coming into the pocket and swinging heavy shots when he needs to. So he isn't just going to run away the whole time. He's also a solid grappler as well, and he has good takedowns on the ground to get you to the ground if he needs to. I think it's going to be a close fight, but based off of their performances alone, I think Jose has looked more impressive. I think he has more power, and he's going to be more elusive in his movement, and he'll be longer, and he just won't fight like how William Gomez fought Hyder Amil and try to run away the whole fight, which is why Hyder Amil was able to walk William Gomez down because William kept running away and He didn't. He pretty much didn't want to fight. He was waiting until the round was over, and then that made Hyder be able to walk him down. Jose Delgado isn't gonna run away like that. He'll meet you in the pocket and he'll strike you from a distance, come in, land some good shots, come back out, come in, land some good shots, come back out. And Jose, he's just a game opponent, so he's on a 6 fight finishing streak and he's coming to finish you. He's not coming to win points and win a decision. He wants that finish. That's the way he fights. I think this Jose kid, he's gonna be more dominant in there, and I just imagine he'll be a pretty decently sized favorite in this fight. I'm not sure what the odds are for this fight, but Hyder, he really had to fight his way in his to he really had to fight his way to win a split decision in his last fight versus someone who kind of has a similar build to Jose, but Jose will be more active in there than Hyder's last opponent, and he'll put the pressure back on the Hyder, and he'll will actually land on him, and he won't run. So I think Hyder will meet his match here, and he'll get tagged up by Jose. So I'm going Jose Delgado. Even though Hyder has shown to be super durable, like I said, he comes forward, he tries to walk you down, he mixes in takedowns. I just feel Hyder is more heart than skill. And Delgado, he's on a 6 fight win finishing streak, and he's just gonna be more technical, and I think he'll have more power in this matchup as well. So the pick is Jose Delgado. He has better striking, in my opinion. He's looked more impressive, and I think he's gonna be a serious problem in this division. I don't see Heidi or Amil getting past him, so I'm going Jose Delgado. Next fight on the card, we do have Gregory Rodrigues versus Jack Hermanson. This is actually a pretty funny matchup because you have Jack Hermanson, who has the fight with Joe Pyfer where he ate all of Joe Pyfer's shots in the first 2 rounds. Then Pyfer gasses out and ends up getting picked apart during the later rounds of the fight. And then Jack won the fight from just being durable and weathering the storm and then coming on to him later. And then you have Gregory Rodrigues, who just went through the same thing with Jared Cannonier. Gregory dropped him, I think, multiple times in the first 2 rounds. He dropped Jared Cannonier like multiple times in the first 2 rounds. And then Jared was able to survive those big shots. Pretty much waited until Gregory gassed out. And he waited until Gregory let out all those big shots. And then Jared survived. He came back and dominated the rest of the fight, ended up TKOing him in the 4th round. So it's pretty funny that the UFC put this fight together because we're gonna see, like, is Gregory gonna go through the same thing that just happened versus someone who also experienced weathering a storm and then coming back later. So it's a cool matchup, but yeah, Gregory, he when he holds a lot of muscle in his fights, and he doesn't have a lot of cardio. So if you can survive those heavy shots in the first 2 rounds or so, you can win the fight because he will gas out, right? So it's up to Gregory to pace himself in this fight and not wear himself out with these heavy shots all in the first round or two. And the thing about Jack is that I forgot to say who I'm picking. I'm picking Gregory to win this fight, right? But the thing about Jack is that he hasn't fought since February of last year. And so it's kind of been a while since we've seen him. It's been a year and a couple months since he's fought. But I do think Gregory will understand not to gas himself out in this fight. And I think he went through that experience and he knows now not to let it all out in the first round. And even if he doesn't learn from that experience, I still think he possesses that heavy power long enough for Jack to not react well when he gets hit from those shots, because Jack, he did weather the storm from Joe Pyfer, but there are times where Jack has been knocked out or TKO'd within the first 2 rounds before. So there's a possibility he gets caught that despite weathering that storm from Joe Pyfer. So, and not to mention, this is a 3 round fight, which heavily favors Gregory because he can definitely just win those first 2 rounds. And if he gets tired in the third, he'll still would have done enough damage to Jack Hermanson enough to win him the fight. I think he'll win the first 2 out of 3 rounds for sure. So yeah, because Gregory, he was on a win streak before that Jaron Cannonier fight, but then he ended up losing in the fourth round. So he got TKO'd in the fourth round. So I don't see him gassing out enough, like bad enough to be TKO'd in the third round. So when Jack Hermanson came back and won versus Joe Pyfer, it was a 5 round fight, which favored Jack Hermanson. But this is going to be a 3 round fight, so I feel this will favor Gregory. But Jack, we haven't seen him in a while, so we really don't know what to expect. He is durable for the most part. He's smart, but he thrives in longer fights. Gregory's going to be super explosive. He can fade, but I think he still has massive power. But the cardio is something that you should kind of worry about, but not in a fight where it's only 3 rounds. So I think Gregory will land the more heavier shots within those 3 rounds, and he might even get him out of there, in the first round or two. Because, yeah, this could be competitive in the third, but I definitely think Gregory wins the first and then lands enough to win the second. So I'm going Gregory to win this fight. Next fight on the card, we do have a fight that has been canceled, unfortunately. Yeah, that's tough. Next fight on the card, we have a Beneil Dariush fight versus Renato Moicano. This is a pretty even fight. Like, this is a hard pick, but I'm picking Renato Moicano to get it done. I'm picking Renato Moicano. When the UFC called Renato Moicano to take on Islam Makhachev on short notice, on like a day's notice, Beneil Dariush made some comments about that after the fight, and he was kind of salty about it. He was talking smack about Renato's performance, and he was like, the UFC should have called me to fight Islam on short notice, but they called Renato. And that kind of made more sense because Beneil's on a 2 fight losing streak, and Renato was on a 3 fight winning streak. But Beneil was making claims that he would have beat Islam and he has a better style for Islam, which I don't know if he actually believes, and maybe he's just trying to sell himself. But yeah, I feel like this fight, it's good that it got rebooked because they kind of stirred up some more beef in the process leading up to it. But talking about their fights, Beneil, his last win was 3 fights ago versus a pretty good opponent in Mateus Gamrot, which is an impressive victory, right? So he had some really good scrambles in there. He had really good decision making. He looked athletic throughout the whole fight. But his last 2 fights, he got finished in the first round to Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, which is pretty much like the elite of the division. So those are not bad losses at all. Beneil, he has good takedown defense. He has power in his hands. He was on 8 fight win streak before facing Charles and Arman. However, Renato, on this hand, he can't afford to lose, right? So his win over Benoit Saint Denis, it was very impressive, and it was really telling of his new shift in mindset that he had, that he's going to go out there and start dominating fights. And when he did that to Benoit Saint Denis, it's like you got to take his word for that. You know, he wasn't able to do that against the champion on 12 hours notice, but doing that to Benoit Saint Denis, that's pretty impressive, and that kind of shows that he's kind of made a shift in his mindset. But if this fight was were to happen like a year or two ago, before Benil got finished in the first round twice to the elite of the division, and then Renato Moicano, he was still that journeyman type of fighter. I feel everyone would heavily favor Benil Dariush to win the fight. But Renato just has a lot of momentum right now, and I see Renato kind of being on the rise in his career, which is odd to say because he's older than Benil Dariush by a couple years. But I see Benil kind of on the decline. You know, I feel Renato wants that spot. He wants to take his spot, and I think he has that momentum and confidence to go in there and actually do that. Benil, he has good takedowns, and losing to Charles and Armin isn't bad at all. You know, you can't just say he's a bad fighter just because of getting finished in the first round to the elite of the division, right? So there is a chance he pulls this off. This is going to be a very close fight because Dariush, like I said, he's good takedowns, he has good grappling. Only lost to two of the best in the division. He has good power, but I just think Renato is on the rise right now. I think he'll put more volume out. He'll be more active. He'll outwork him. And right now, in this stage of the career, they're kind of on the same level. You know, you have Benio who was on the way to the top, but now he kind of slowed down, and you have Renato who was in the mid section of the division for a lot of time. Now he's finally starting to rise up. So just in the shift of momentum, you kind of see Renato moving up while Benio kind of losing his place. And Renato's hungry. He wants that win badly. So I think he's more motivated than ever right now. And I just think Renato will pull it off. You know, Benio, he's kind of has like that veteran vibe. He has power, he has wrestling, but got knocked out back to back in his last two fights. Renato Moicano just hungry. He's well rounded as well. He's coming off of a strong win in Benil Saint Denis and just losing to the champion on 12 notice. I'm going I'm going Renato because he just has that momentum right now riding with him. He's more active and I can see him outworking Benil Darius. So I'm gonna go Renato Moicano to win this fight. Next fight on the card, we do have one of the coolest fights ever. We have Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. When I first saw this fight, I was really gonna pick Joshua Van. I was super convinced that he was gonna win based off of what he was doing to his last opponents, but I'm gonna pick Brandon Royval to get it done because when I started thinking with my head and not my heart, I was like, okay, this can be a pretty solid win right here for Brandon Royval. I can see him outworking Joshua Van, which is crazy to say because Joshua Van's super young, energetic, motivated, has had really great striking in the UFC, coming off a dominant win. But I feel Brandon Royval right now in this stage of his career, he's kind of in his prime right now. Like he's 32 years old. He just went to war with Tatsuro Taira and he gave Tatsuro Taira his first loss. And he's just on a tear right now in the flyweight division. And the only three losses he has in his UFC career is to the champion Alexander Pantoja. The second one was to the champion Alexander Pantoja, and the third one is Brandon Moreno, a former champion, who he who Royval eventually avenges that loss. So Royval is right up there with for another shot at the title, especially if he wins this fight. I think he deserves it. You know, he gets so close to win it every time. He beats everyone else in the division. He beats everyone that he's supposed to beat. But when it comes to the elite of the elite, like the champion and Alexander Pantoja, he comes up short and he faces really tough competition and doesn't get it done. But I still see him winning this fight because if you're picking Joshua Van to win this fight, you're saying that he's on the same level as Alexander Pantoja, same level as Brandon Moreno, and he could be at that level. But I just think right now at this stage of his career, he's too early. He's too green to pull it off versus someone who has been there so many times and faced all these great challenges in his career and has overcome them. He's only come up short versus the best of the best in the division, and he's gonna be bigger than him and more experienced than him. He's Yeah, that's kind of why I'm picking Brendan Royval, and Brendan Royval he has really good striking. He has tons of volume. He has great grappling. He has great scrambles as well. Just always comes forward. Like the dude is just a workhorse. So when it comes to the power, comparing their power, I would say Joshua Van definitely has more power, you know. But I think Royval will have a lot more volume and just pressure, like that heavy pressure that he'll put on you. But when you're fighting someone like Joshua Van, who I'm a huge fan of Joshua Van, right? This kid's striking, it's special. Like we saw him drop Bruno Silva four times in his last fight. Like 3 or 4 times I think it was. And he works the body really nicely. And in that fight, he pretty much just overpowered Bruno Silva in every aspect of the fight, in every area. So this kid, Joshua Van, he's pretty much the truth, right? But I just still don't think he'll be able to get past Royval. Like I hope he does. That'd be really cool to see, right? Like to see him get past and then get a title shot. I think with that type of momentum, I'll probably pick him to beat like anyone after that. But right now, we saw Joshua Van struggle versus Charles Johnson, who's a tall, lanky fighter who can pick him apart and be a dog and fight back. Royval is tall as well, and he's more skilled, I would say, than Johnson overall as a fighter, you know? So Royval is just like at that top of the pack right now, and he's only lost to champions and former champions, to the champion and the former champion. And when Charles beat Joshua Van, he was on a 3 fight losing streak. You know, Royval he just beat Tatsuro Taira, who was supposed to be the next biggest undefeated prospect. Royval gave him his first loss, and he pretty much shut that down. In a really good fight though, but I think to take out Tatsuro Taira to give him his first loss, who's an elite grappler, I think Royval can handle the lone striking game plan of Joshua Van, right? So I just think Royval he'll be more well rounded in there, and he's just gonna be too long and skilled for Joshua Van because Van is really good. Like he has potential to be at the top of the division. I just think right now he needs more experience, and it's way too early for him to be fighting like someone like as high level as Brandon Royval, who's been there and only lost to champions and former champions, and kind of took out everyone else on the way there. So when you're Joshua Van losing to Charles Johnson, who kind of has a similar build to Royval, I can see some problems here for him. And yeah, I just think if you can utilize Joshua Van's striking with long, rangy kicks and get him into the clinch, you can pretty much beat him if you can control him and overpower him. But in the striking power, I think Joshua Van, if he lands a couple nice combinations on Brandon Royval, it could get tricky. So it's up to Royval to kind of be at range and kind of pick him apart and mix in different strikes and not be predictable, mix in the takedowns, try to get him in the clinch. And we've seen Joshua Van get knocked out by Charles Johnson kind of like from range, you know what I mean? He got hit, and as he was backing up, he had nowhere to go. Brandon Royval's a dog. He's going to have that pressure to keep coming forward and put that heavy pressure that kind of discomforts Joshua Van. But I will say this early in Brandon Royval's career, he lost to some guys that are kind of the same height to Joshua Van. And he even lost, if you look at Brandon Royval's first ever loss in his professional career, it was to someone who was 5'2". But you can't just say, okay, he lost to someone 5'2". He's going to lose to Joshua Van because that was 12 years ago. Way more than 12 years ago, I think. And yeah, he's definitely not that same person that lost that fight. You know, he's improved a lot, and he's just like on a whole new level right now. I just see him getting a title shot after this. He's gonna make a statement, and it's gonna look really impressive beating Joshua Van. But yeah, I don't. There's no shame at all losing to Royval. He is just an absolute cardio machine. He's very dangerous. He's an absolute finisher, and I just don't think Joshua Van's elite striking is going to be enough for the well-roundedness, how elite the elite well-roundedness of Brandon Moreno. So it's gonna be a good fight, but I just think Royval has higher volume. He's an elite scrambler as well, and can kind of take care of himself no matter where the fight goes. And his only losses are to champions, former champ and the current champ twice. So in the UFC, so this guy's right up there at the top of the division. Van, he's a really talented striker, but I just think he hasn't faced someone like Brandon Royval. He faced Charles Johnson, who's not on the same level as Royval, and Charles Johnson took care of him. And yeah, Joshua Van, he kind of struggled with that rangy fighter in Charles Johnson, and I can see Royval putting the pressure on him, kind of like Johnson did, and kind of outworking him from range and kind of out dogging him. Because I just think Brandon Royval, I think he's too skilled, too experienced, and he's right up there to get another title shot after this. So picking Royval, I think he wants it more. I think he seems more professional in his demeanor as well. So yeah, I'm gonna take Brandon Royval to win the fight. Next fight on the card, we have the champion himself, Alexander Pantoja, versus Kai Kara France. I'm picking Alexander Pantoja to win the fight. So Kai Kara France loses to Brandon Moreno, and then he loses to Amir Albazian, right? And then he beats Steve Ursig, and they're like, "Yeah, you beat Steve Ursig. You deserve a title shot." Like that doesn't really make sense, but he's getting the title shot for beating Steve Ursig, and I just see Pantoja winning this fight. I just think he looked the way he looked in his last fight just showed how high level of a mixed martial artist this guy really is, you know. He stalked his opponent down, he landed nice strikes and instantly got it to the ground and submitted him. He pretty much made him look easy. They got that guy from another organization with elite striking saying he's good enough to instantly get a title shot, and Pantoja was like, I'm not gonna let this guy come into the UFC, make the whole UFC division look bad. And he stood on business. He took him down, submitted him. He even landed some nice shots on him as well. And it just shows how high level this guy is. He's ran through everyone in the division. They got someone else from another organization, and then he still took care of him as well. The run that Pantoja is on right now, it just seems super impressive. Beating Royval twice, he beat Moreno, and he even has a win over Manel Kopp as well. That's not an easy thing to do. And Kai Kara France beating Steve Carroll from The Office to get this title shot, I just don't see it as enough to say that he's gonna win this fight. He's gonna win the title because of that one win that he has. He is very fast. He's very accurate as well, Kai Kara France, especially how good he looked in his last fight versus Steve Carroll. But I think Pantoja will be able to hang with him in the striking. And I think despite Kai Kara France having elite takedown defense, I think Alexander Pantoja will be able to hang with him in the striking and also mix in the takedowns. I see him being stronger than Kai Kara France in there, and he'll be obviously more well rounded. I think he has a good balance of mixing in the strikes and the takedowns as well. He's kind of unpredictable with it too. He'll throw a shot, he'll throw a right hand and then duck under instantly. And he kind of uses it as a setup. He kind of distracts you. He'll throw that right hand, duck under, and then instantly go for a takedown. He's good balancing out, not being predictable in how well he mixes up the striking and the takedowns. But Kai does have really good takedown defense. But if you stay in the fight with him, the longer it goes, I feel you can outdog him, especially if you have that championship level experience like Pantoja does. So I just think overall, Pantoja, he'll have better fight IQ. He'll be stronger in there. He'll just outdog him in there. I think Kai striking, it will be better if it was striker versus striker. I think Kai can outstrike him, but I just don't think Kai striking is so much better than Pantoja's striking defense. It's not like Pantoja's striking defense is so bad that Kai Kara France's striking is going to completely overpower him. No, I think Pantoja will be able to hang with him in there. He has good striking defense. You won't get hit clean time and time again, kind of like how Steve Erceg did. And I think Pantoja will be able to stand with him and look for moments throughout the fight to get the fight to the mat. And I think that's kind of the difference maker here. Like the fight IQ and the balance of striking versus takedown. And he's not going to be super predictable when he goes for these takedowns. Pantoja as well, he's never been finished by knockout or submission. So what? We're going to say that Kai Kara France is going to beat him to a decision? I just don't see that happening, especially with the championship experience that Pantoja has. He's the champion. He's on a dominant run. Elite grappler. He's durable everywhere. And Kai, he just has that speedy striker mentality. But I just don't think he's faced someone as determined and strong as Pantoja. And coming off of two losses and a win to Steve Carroll, I don't think that's enough to say that, okay, he's looked so good that he's going to beat Pantoja. I think Pantoja will be able to drag him into deep waters because he's just too well-rounded. He's too gritty. And I think the champion wins this fight and still Alexander Pantoja. Next fight on the card, we do have the main event of the evening. We have Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria. Wait. Yeah, I don't know. I had to restart that because Oliveira looked a bit glitchy in there. That's better. So, yeah, I'm picking Ilia Topuria to win this fight. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment if you enjoyed the video. Comment your thoughts, and I'll see you on the next one. No, I'm just kidding. So Ilia Topuria, this is actually not his UFC debut, or his not his. This is not his lightweight debut. He fought here before versus Jai Herbert, which is probably the most trouble we've ever seen him be in his UFC career after eating that head kick and then coming back. But he ended up still winning that fight. He remained undefeated. But yeah, I just wanted to say this is not his lightweight debut. So he's been here before, and that was like the time where we saw him in the most trouble. So keep that in mind. But I'm still picking him to win this fight. I'm obviously gonna pick Ilia Topuria to win this fight because he's just on a very special run right now. He taking out Volk like that, and then taking out Holloway both by knockout. I think Ilya is just way too good right now. Like I knew he was good, but dude, that's probably the greatest back-to-back wins in UFC history. To finish two legends at the top of their division like that by knockout, that's pretty insane to do. And when you look at Charles' fight, I kind of just want to keep this simple because when you see Charles fight, he gets dropped in legit every fight he's in. Islam dropped him by punch. Dustin dropped him. Gaethje dropped him. I'm pretty sure Chandler dropped him or had him in some serious trouble. But then he ends up taking their back and then submitting them. I just think Ilya, he's too smart for that to happen because I think it's inevitable. Ilya has power, really strong power, very sharp accuracy, so it's inevitable for him to knock down Charles Oliveira, who gets knocked down in every fight. I just think Ilya doesn't have that bad fight IQ where he's like, okay, I dropped him. Let me like give up my back and get submitted. I think when he drops him, he'll finish him on the ground, or he'll submit him, kind of like how Islam did, or he'll just punch until the ref pulls him off with strikes. So that's if Charles doesn't go to sleep from that shot that Ilya lands. So I just want to. That's how simple I see this fight because Charles he gets dropped way too often in his fights, and you think Ilya won't land that shot on him? So I just highly doubt Ilya doesn't drop him multiple times. And Ilya's grappling, it's much better than we think. This guy's background is in grappling, and he's primarily a grappler, but we just see him knocking everyone out before he has to use it. And the only time Ilia Topuria has been taken down was in that fight he had with Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell took him down one time in their fight. He got back up and started blasting shots, heavy shots on Bryce Mitchell with accuracy as well. He didn't let him get another takedown. He stopped every other takedown and just kept blasting. He was like urgent to win. He said, okay, I can't let this guy mess with me on the ground anymore. I have to show him that I mean business. And he just picked up the striking pace, and he eventually got him out of there. Just dropped him with his strikes, I believe, and then submitted him on the ground. That was the only time Ilia Topuria has been taken down in his UFC career. So, yeah. And there's also the argument of how Charles Oliveira has like the length, the height to give Topuria some trouble. They have Charles Oliveira listed as 5'10" here, and they had Max Holloway listed as 5'11". So you can't say, oh, Charles is taller than him, he's gonna beat him. They have Max listed taller than Charles, and we saw what Ilia Topuria did to Max Holloway. So I don't think he'll have a problem with the height of Charles Oliveira. And like I said in the beginning of this breakdown, we've seen Ilia Topuria face adversity, some serious adversity in his career versus Jai Herbert in his lightweight debut when he got dropped by that head kick. And he didn't just fold under pressure, he recovered quickly. He showed to be in good shape, recovered quickly, quickly went for the legs and continued to win. And that pretty much just shows how game he is. Even when he faces adversity in his fights, he's still super determined to win. He gets dropped, comes back, drops him, not only drops him, knocks him out cold. And then when that fight with Bryce Mitchell, got taken down, the only time he's ever been taken down, got back up. He stuffed Bryce Mitchell, ended up going 1 for 9 on takedowns for the rest of the fight, or in the fight total. He faced that adversity where he got held down a bit, got back up, knocked him out, knocked him down, submitted him. So even when he runs into trouble, he's still coming forward. And Charles Oliveira, he's kind of known to be not of a quitter as of late, but he's not durable enough to withstand what Ilya is going to bring to the fight. Because you can hurt Ilya, but he'll keep coming, right? That's what we've seen from him. You can hurt Islam, and he has potential to be finished. And someone like Ilya is going to capitalize on that. Someone who sees an opportunity to win instantly takes it with either a submission or just keep striking until you kind of throw in the towel or give up on yourself. So, yeah, I'm going Ilya. He just knocked out Volk. He knocked out Holloway. He's very sharp. He's very powerful. He has underrated grappling in this matchup. I feel a lot of people might favor Charles because of the grappling, but I think the grappling of Ilya is also elite. It's very underrated. So you have someone like Charles who's always getting dropped in every fight. Ilya isn't gonna be like the other fighters that Charles fought, where they kind of let him recover or they give up their back after dropping him. Ilya's gonna drop you multiple times, and he's gonna go for the finish. And he's gonna be too sharp and powerful. I just think in the speed as well, when it comes to the striking, he's gonna be a lot more faster. He's gonna be a lot more sharper. I think this might be back to back to back knockouts. Even Ilya has been saying on his Instagram, what do you say? He said, "Don't forget to bring the pillow," as meaning he intends to knock him out. There's gonna be back to back to back knockouts. It's gonna be the most impressive 3-fight win streak we have seen. If he was fighting Islam Makhachev, this would be a completely different breakdown because that would actually be somewhat competitive. Islam doesn't get dropped as often, even though he has been dropped and knocked out. Charles gets dropped way too often in his fights for me to not think someone with Ilya's accuracy and power isn't gonna drop him. It's inevitable for Ilya to drop him, and I think he's gonna capitalize on that and finish him. He lets him back up. Okay, he'll drop him again. I just don't think Ilya's grappling is bad enough to give up his back after hurting him like Charles's last opponents that lost to him. So I just see Ilya overpowering him everywhere. He's too athletic, too versatile in his tools that he has to use. I just see him being better everywhere. So I think this ends violently. I think it ends by knockout. I think Ilya gets it done. And yeah, it's tough. It's gonna be tough to see Charles go out like that, but I really believe in Ilya. Ilya really believes in Ilya. So that pretty much wraps it up. Let me know what you guys thought about this breakdown, and Give me your predictions in the comments below, whether you agree, disagree, what you thought of this video. And yeah, let me know your predictions as well and who you're gonna pick to win the fight. And thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys for all the support, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.